What's going on, you guys? It is your boy, the American F1 fan, Eric Ringle here, and we are back. It's race week, and it's time for the Chinese Grand Prix. Off the backs of Lando Norris' victory in Australia, what does this track have in store for our 10 teams? Let's talk about it now. So two big news stories for China. The first being that the FIA have clamped down on the rear wing deflection. They've brought it down from 2 millimeters down to 0.5 millimeters. So the thing is, Red Bull has asked this to be looked at, and the FIA looked at it last week in Australia, and they saw some things that may be questionable from some of the teams, and so they've decided to clamp down on this further. And so they've offered more guidance on the rear wing. As we saw back last season in Baku, the mini DRS that McLaren built into their car obviously created a huge advantage for them. And so now they're trying to clamp down a little bit more on, finding the loopholes in the rules. And so Red Bull is hoping that this may have been the thing that was putting McLaren ahead, but we'll have to wait and see once we get into the race. But the other big story this weekend is the delay in the team's freight getting to China. Now, they have extended the curfew hours for all the teams, so all the teams will be allowed to spend extra time at the track getting their cars ready for the one and only free practice that we're going to have, because it is a sprint race weekend. So all the teams have been allowed to break curfew compared to what they usually do. They've been able to break curfew by 5.5 hours. That'll allow every team to get their cars ready for free practice one. But now it's time to talk about the race. So talking about the Shanghai track, this is a tight and twisty high downforce track. Now you do have two long DRS straights. You have one on the start-finish straight, and then you have one on the back stretch right before a tight chicane there, where we see a lot of action and where we saw Lance Stroll last year famously run into the back of Daniel Ricciardo. But talking about this track and talking about my predictions this weekend, we do have a sprint race weekend this weekend, but if I'm thinking about it, being honestly, looking at how McLaren was able to produce last weekend, and they looked really, really good. Even in the rain and the dry, they were pulling time on Max Verstappen and the Red Bull. Now, I say Red Bull because Liam Lawson hasn't been able to show much yet with the Red Bull car, as he had lots of problems in the Australian Grand Prix weekend. I can't go against McLaren this weekend. I've got Lando Norris winning the sprint race. I've got Max Verstappen finishing second, and then I've got Oscar Piastri finishing third. I just think McLaren is just too tough right now, and they've got the right car. They've found the right setups week in, week out, and I just don't see that changing here in China. They have an all-around really good car. But then when you get into the race, I think this is going to be a lot closer, like we saw in Australia towards the very end between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. But I'm going to still go with Lando Norris here. I think Lando Norris pulls the victory in the sprint race, and then I think he pulls victory in the main race as well. I've got Max Verstappen finishing second in both races, but then in the main race, I've got Charles Leclerc finishing third. I think Ferrari didn't get to show their full potential in Australia with, the fact that we were going to have wet weather. They knew we were going to have wet weather, and they were working on setups to really work in that wet weather. And we didn't see, I think, everything that the Ferrari has. And I think this weekend we're going to see a really good Ferrari car really push back up towards the front and show everybody that they are a car that is going to be able to fight for a constructor's title and maybe even a World Drivers' Championship. Now, two teams to look out for this weekend. I think Williams is a team that we saw really good things out of in Australia. We were kind of wondering where they were going to be. They put up some really good times in testing, but we weren't sure, is this just, showing off, going full power and having the least amount of drag on their car. But as we saw in Australia, they've really got underneath the car and really gotten the development to the car that they needed to really push themselves up the grid. And I mean, Williams is going to be a force, for top 5, in the constructor standings, but also they're going to be able to start pushing some of these top teams like, the Mercedes, and we still consider Aston Martin there. So that's one of the teams I'm looking at. And then the team that I called my stinker of the week last week, which was totally off, I think Kick Sauber is another team that we have to look at this weekend, with Nico Hülkenberg having a better finish than both of the Ferrari cars last week. We have to really look and say, maybe Kick Sauber, that 20% that they brought to Australia, was the 20% that they needed to push themselves up a little bit further on the grid. And we saw some really good things out of Gabriel Bortoleto. And unfortunately, he had a broken car in the middle of the race, and then he ended his race prematurely when he spun, and then the suspension broke. So I think we have two really good cars there at Sauber, Kick Sauber, and I think they're really going to be able to push and potentially push for points. And now my stinker team of the week, and I hate saying this as this team's fan, but right now Haas doesn't have a freaking clue what's going on with this car. They don't know, if the setups are just way off, or is it the development in the off season really took them in the wrong direction. They just don't know right now, and that's really going to hurt this team. And with Oliver Bierman and the horrible time he had in Australia, where literally he missed almost every free practice session, and now with only getting one free practice session in China, I don't think this does the team any good. And then Esteban Ocon can only do so much with this car until they can fully realize what they need to do to develop this car to get it back further up on the grid. So, unfortunately, my stinker team of the week is Haas. So, guys, let me know what you guys think is going to happen in the Chinese Grand Prix this weekend. Like I said, it is a sprint race, and it is a main race weekend. So we've got so much to look forward to. We do have one free practice, the sprint qualifying, sprint race, and then the main race. I am excited for this. There will be no live stream this week, as the race is at 2 a.m. here in the United States, and it's just not going to be possible. So I'm not doing a live stream this week. But guys, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think is going to happen with the Chinese Grand Prix this weekend. And as always, please hit the like button. It helps this video get out to so many Formula One fans. So please, if you can do me a favor and hit that like button. And then also hit that subscribe button. We are getting so close to 1,000 subscribers. So keep helping me out and keep hitting that subscribe button, guys. It means the world to me. But guys, thank you so much for watching this video. And guys, for the American F1 fan, I'm Eric Ringel, signing off.